You guys heard of the Mammophant? The what? The Mammophant. It's like I don't know, it's an elephant and a woolly mammoth mix and doesn't have the tusks. So it's basically a snuffleupagus. Hi everyone, I'm Jake Gill. This is the Technophiles Newscast. On this episode, we're talking about some mammoth news in the area of genetics. Last week, a team of Harvard scientists announced that they're about 2 years away from creating a hybrid embryo that could, in theory, resurrect the woolly mammoth. Did you see what I did there in that opener? Professor George Church gave this announcement a week before he was going to be speaking in Boston at the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and he talked a little bit about how this process is going to work. The goal of the Harvard team is to create a hybrid embryo using woolly mammoth traits and splicing them with an Asian elephant to create a new kind of creature, which they would be calling a Mammophant. The hybrid embryo wouldn't be a woolly mammoth entirely, which is why they're proposing to call this creature something like a Mammophant. For all us Jurassic Park fans out there, that means we're going to have to wait a little bit longer until someone looks at us and says, "We have a woolly mammoth." The hybrid embryo would contain some classic mammoth traits, such as the small ears, the long shaggy hair, actually cold adaptive blood. You will notice that this list of traits that they're selecting for doesn't include the large tusks, which is really unfortunate. And it also kind of makes me think that this could be some kind of a snuffleupagus coming in our future. I don't know. Professor Church and the team at Harvard have been leading the de-extinction effort since 2015. In the summer of 2015, we also completed the sequencing of the woolly mammoth genome. So maybe that unlocked them to kind of continue this research. Since 2015, the number of gene edits or splices that we've been using the mammoth DNA in replacement of the elephant DNA has gone up significantly. Originally, there were 15 edits, and now there are as many as 45, and there could be more in the future. So what's the science behind this? How do we actually go about creating this embryo? The way that the mammoth genes are going to be spliced into the elephant embryo is by using something called the CRISPR-Cas9 technique. The way the CRISPR-Cas9 technique works is you create something called a guide RNA, and this will find and locate the area in the DNA that you'd like to change. Then you use a protein called Cas9, which actually works kind of like a scissors and will cut out snips of DNA. The guide RNA then works along with the Cas9 protein to find the area that needs modification and make the cut. Once that's done, the new DNA that you've created can go in there and replace that section that's been cut out, and then some enzymes will repair things and make things work, and voila, you have a new DNA. The goal ultimately that these scientists hope to achieve is to take this embryo and raise a Mammophant in an artificial womb. Now, this works a little bit better than using, say, an Asian elephant, likely because in the process of doing this kind of research and trying to grow this embryo, it would put the mother elephant actually at risk. And this is a really bad thing because Asian elephants are actually on the endangered species list. The goal here is that this artificial womb would hold the embryo and raise it to its gestational term. So if we look at the pros of this radical idea, we could see woolly mammoths brought back to life in an interesting way. And I think that this is kind of significant because 4,000 years ago when they went extinct, the likely causes of that were climate change and human hunting. So bringing these things back, you know, could be a kind of a good way for us to pay back what we did to the woolly mammoths. It also actually increases the likelihood that we could help save the Asian elephant, which, as I mentioned before, is an endangered species. Obviously, this wouldn't be an Asian elephant, wouldn't be a woolly mammoth either, but this new kind of hybrid would carry a lot of the genetic markers and genetic things that make Asian elephants unique. Additionally, Professor Church, in his talk, said that these Mammophants might actually be able to help combat climate change. The way that they would do this, the concept here is that a woolly mammoth or the Mammophant on the tundra in winter would be clomping around in the snow and actually creating some holes which would allow cold air to go in and decrease the amount of meltage that would occur on the frost. And then in summers, these giant beasts would be knocking over trees and allowing grass to grow and really just try and cut down on some of the greenhouse gases that are emitted when permafrost melts. Obviously, there are not only pros to this. After the announcement of this project, there has been a lot of critics that are asking if we should even be doing something like this in the first place. Obviously, there are a lot of ethical considerations that need to be taken into account before we went ahead and put an embryo like this into an artificial womb. There's also the question of kind of the unknown. I mean, we've all seen Jurassic Park. We know that bad things can happen. So, well, I'm not thinking that woolly mammoths are gonna go and start taking things over and eating people and doing all these different things. We literally don't know what would happen if we brought a species that's been dead for 4,000 years back. There's also the social considerations here. Elephants are very social animals. So if you have kind of a new kid on the block and they're hanging out with these other elephants, we don't really know what would happen. But we're gonna leave that to the scientists to figure out and for them to kind of discover and discuss it. And ultimately it will be up to them and what they wanna do with it. The big question here that's on my mind, and I'm sure is on yours, is when are we gonna be seeing these mammophants in the wild? Unfortunately, I think it's gonna be a while. These Harvard scientists have claimed that they're about 2 years out from creating a viable embryo. But what happens after that is actually quite complex. See, we need to be able to, first we need to be able to create an artificial womb. We need to create a viable embryo that can go from a petri dish to this artificial womb, which we also don't have yet. So theoretically, if we have this artificial womb, how hard can it be? Well, Professor Church and the Harvard team have actually already created an artificial womb that they've been using to raise mice. The gestation period that they were able to achieve is 10 days, about half of the total gestation period of mice. And that's already a significant breakthrough, but they have a long way to go. An elephant calf's gestational period is 660 days. So like I said, I think it's gonna be a while. After that, we also have to take into account that we need to be able to raise this thing and nurture it to the point that we could birth and raise a calf and grow that up and then do that over and over and over again and then introduce them into the wild if this is something that we even think is a good idea. Despite the fact that we won't see mammophants roaming the earth in the next 2 years, this is still a major breakthrough in embryo research and technologies. It's really going to be interesting to see what happens in this and especially in the kind of technologies of artificial wombs, which it also looks like Dr. Church and his team are making some breakthroughs on. I'm curious what you, the viewer, thinks about these kind of breakthroughs in genetics. Do you think that we should be bringing the woolly mammoth back in the form of the mammophant? How is this any different from, say, other hybrids like dogs that we've been breeding or even the mule? Maybe the fact that it's extinct creates some kind of a taboo? I'm not sure. Let us know in the comments below. Also, I would love to know your predictions of when the actual mammophants might be roaming the earth or a tundra near you. You can also tweet at us with your predictions at Technophiles Pod or visit our website at technophilespodcast.com. You can even join the conversation on Facebook, where we can be found by searching Technophiles Podcast. That's all we have for today's newscast. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you saw, be sure to check out some of our other newscast videos over here, or check out the Technophiles podcast. We have some episodes over here. Obviously, if you were a fan of what you saw here, we really appreciate you hitting the subscribe button down there. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.